We finally made it. After a few months off, RLCS is back and bigger than ever. With new regions, new formats, and more money on the line than ever before, this season is looking to be the biggest and best that the RLCS has ever seen, and I could not be more excited. While we all know about the top players in the world, your Garretts, Monkey Moons, First Killers, or whoever, I want to take some time out to highlight the players who I think are going to be future superstars. With the more open ecosystem that was introduced in RLCS X, new players have been able to come in and make a name for themselves at the pro level. So now it's time to see who can take the next step to become truly elite players on the world stage. I'll choose 3 players from NA and 3 players from EU, and I'll put the full list of players in this video along with their timestamps on the screen now. Skip to the play that you're interested in, or stick around for all of them if you like. Save all your questions for the end of class, and let's get into it. LJ had one of the most impressive seasons in RLCS X, not just out of mid-level teams, but out of all players. Playing for a team that was around the middle of the pack all season, LJ stood out as the bright spot for his team all year, leading his team in all 3 major stats. In all honesty, I'm surprised that he didn't get picked up by a larger org looking to make a rise in the rankings. But after spending all of RLCS X with his teammates on Jamal Jabari /BOSF /Oxygen, I think that LJ is primed to step into being a true star in North America as he begins his 2nd season with his team. LJ improved steadily as the season went on, which can be seen through his stats. And this improvement culminated in the final event that his team played in, Spring Regional 3, where he averaged 0.87 goals and 0.83 assists per game, which were 6th and 1st out of all players in that event respectively. And in this event, he faced some of the strongest competition by making it all the way to the semifinals of that tournament. He even had an excellent showing in the Intel World Open qualifiers, where he faced off against the all-star team, Murica, 3 different times, winning once. And by the way, that Murica team had Garrett G, First Killer, and Chicago. I don't know if you could make a more aggressive team if you tried, and those guys made the most of it, averaging over 3 goals per game. Man, that team was fun to watch. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh right. But on top of LJ's statistical improvement, you could also see the progression in his gameplay throughout the season, culminating in his excellent performance against NRG. Let's take a look at his ridiculous flip reset double touch pass off the wall. Toasty hits the ball hard off the curve of the wall, sending it up to the ceiling and infield just a little bit. Justin would have been next to go for the ball, but Toasty is chasing him out of the play, forcing him to leave it. This gives LJ room to go for the ball, but since he's coming from straight on, he doesn't have much of a shooting angle. So instead of taking the shot, he looks to get a bit more control of the play to try to set up a better scoring opportunity, and he does this by getting a flip reset for his first touch, hitting the ball straight ahead so he can easily reach it for his 2nd touch. Squishy had already jumped to try to cut off a potential shot from LJ, but when he sees him hit the ball towards the wall, he gets closer to the wall by using a side flip, looking to either get a touch on the ball or disrupt the play in some way. But LJ doesn't give him the chance, because after his reset, he goes right side up and flips into the ball as it comes off the wall, while also keeping it away from Squishy. What happens instead is Squish gets a small bump on LJ, which actually works in his favor. The bump moves him into the ball and he gets a 3rd touch, and with the way that his car is angled, the touch sends the ball slowly and softly to the middle of the field into a perfect spot for Krasix to come clean it up and get the goal. Many of you may have first heard about Lionblaze from his great success in the 1v1 space, which I completely understand. After all, I did too. Lionblaze made a name for himself by consistently finishing at or near the top in just about every ones tournament he played in. When he became old enough, he ventured into 3s. First with 72 PC, then with Omelet, who became Ghost, yada yada yada, and that brings us to the present day, where he is now teammates with Shock and Roldiz, 2 veterans who have seen their fair share of success in their careers. Lionblaze, on the other hand, has yet to see the same success in 3s that he's seen in 1s. He's only made top 8 in an A tier event 4 times, and has only made the top 2 once, but I think he's primed to change that this season with his new teammates, for 2 main reasons. First, everything he's done so far in his Rocket League career, he's done while playing from the West Coast, putting him at a severe disadvantage when it comes to his ping. But he's been able to play at a professional level despite playing cross-server, and if you've ever done this yourself, then you know how hard that can be. But he has recently moved to the East Coast, which means that the disadvantage that he's been playing with no longer applies, and I'm expecting his gameplay to improve significantly as a result. In fact, he's already seen some success after his move, reaching rank 1 on the leaderboards for 1s, 2s, and 3s, all at the same time. And sure, success in ranked isn't the same thing as success at the pro level, but this is a rare feat that has only been accomplished a handful of times. And just about all the other players to do this have seen great success at the pro level too, and I fully expect Lionblaze to follow in their footsteps. As for the second reason why I think he's primed to do well this season, his defensive and counter-attacking playstyle in 1v1 translates to him being a great backline defender and initiator for his team's offense in transition in 3s. This playstyle should fit in perfectly with his 2 new veteran teammates who will be well positioned to follow up on his touches. We see Lionblaze's playstyle at work here against G2. Chicago goes for a pass off the wall to JNaps, who's waiting in the middle of the field to take the shot, but Lionblaze reads the pass perfectly and breaks it up right after it bounces off the wall, giving JNaps no chance to take the shot. Freshness now has time and room with the ball in the air, and with his space, he gives the ball right back to Lionblaze to let him work his magic. He flies up to meet the ball and gets a flip reset with his first touch. With it, he decides to flip immediately so he can keep up with the ball and uses the rest of his boost to pick up speed and reach the ball for his final touch even faster, allowing him to beat Rizzo, who has jumped up for the challenge. His touch sends the ball above the crossbar and back down in front of the offensive box, where Mektos is waiting for it, and slots in the shot for the goal. This goal was set up by Lionblaze's great defensive touch and his ability to carry the ball in a counter-attacking situation, and this is something I'm expecting to see a lot from him when the season starts. Truth be told, many people already see Percy as a star player, and they aren't wrong to think so. He had the stats of a star player last season, finishing in the top 10 in goals, saves, and octane rating. And he was the unquestioned best player for Alpine, who finished 9th in North America and were a legitimate threat for top 6 for much of the season. The main reason that I think Percy is primed for a breakout season isn't only because I think that he himself will improve, which I'm sure he will, but I also think that he's primed to break out because of his new two teammates, Hoxer and J-Pow. Percy likes to be conservatively positioned behind the play, which lets him be a great backline defender, as well as a perfect player to follow up on plays that his teammates set up for him and take shots. And while his teammates at Alpine were great at setting up plays in high-speed situations, like in transition or when they had a numbers advantage, once the defense got settled and the play slowed down, the team would struggle to break the defense open, and they'd create far fewer scoring chances as a result. However, Percy's new teammates at Xset are comfortable with creating scoring chances in many different ways, and J-Pow is especially comfortable with making plays on the ball when the play slows down, often slowing it down himself. We've already had a chance to see this new team dynamic in action this offseason during Dazarin's Wave Dash tournament a few weeks ago. We start from the first kickoff of the first game against Envy in the final playoff bracket of the tournament. The play starts with Percy taking the kickoff and J-Pow cheating behind him. After first contact is made, J-Pow has the next touch lined up after beating Mist to the ball, and Mist backs away from the ball and heads back to the corner boost, knowing that he's beat. But instead of taking a fast hit up the wall like many players here would, instead he side flips away from the ball, hitting it softly and immediately slowing the play down, and allowing him to keep control of the ball while he goes to pick up the boost. With his next touch, he goes outside of the ball and pops the ball slightly upwards and turns to face infield, which threatens an obvious infield pass. Turbo sees this coming and moves up to prepare to cut that pass out. But instead of actually passing to Hoxer, J-Pow goes back to the other side of the ball and turns to face the goal. Since Turbo crept up to prepare for the potential pass, there's extra space behind him for J-Pow to take advantage of. So J-Pow flicks the ball into that vacated space and beats Turbo. And with Turbo beaten, Mist is now in a more awkward position, so for his touch, all he can do is pop the ball straight up. From here, the rest of the play is pretty straightforward. Hoxer beats Atomic to the next touch since he was still rotating back from the kickoff, and he hits it off the backboard to set up a pass for Percy. Then, Percy, being the scorer that he is, jumps up for the ball, beats Turbo to it, and hits it right under the crossbar, giving Mist no chance at the save. And since I mentioned Percy's goal line defense earlier, I might as well show an example of that too. AJ has an air dribble lined up, and Percy is the only defender able to stop it. To make matters worse, he has Illusion chasing him down to bump him and clear the way for AJ's shot. To avoid the bump, Percy goes for an in and out save, driving up the back of the goal. Illusion knows he won't be able to make contact by just running after him, so he jumps up to try to bump Percy at the top of the goal. Percy turns to avoid this bump attempt, which also brings him closer to where AJ is aiming the shot. He falls off the ceiling of the goal and uses his flip to save the air dribble shot, and the 50 goes clear of the goal into the corner, maintaining his team's clean sheet. Oaly actually began his breakout last season, as he and his teams pulled out decent finishes at different points throughout the season, including making it to the top 8 twice. In those good team performances, Oaly was often the primary offensive force for all of his teams, while making an impact all over the field. In his region for RLCS, Oaly was top 10 in goals, saves, and top 5 in octane rating, while finishing just outside of the top 10 in assists. So if there was anything his team needed to get done, they could count on Oaly to do it. And after RLCS ended, he followed it up with a great showing in IWO with Mike Boy and Tho representing Netherlands, qualifying for the event through an absolutely stacked bracket and coming in second in the main event, behind only Team Vitality, who was representing France. Now, he's coming into the new season with 2 new teammates, those being Tho, who is one of the most aggressive and disruptive players that you'll find in all of Europe, and Violent Panda, who is, well, Violent Panda. A legend of the game, and at his peak, he's one of the best passers in the world, and one of the most adaptable players that you can find. They've had some decent showings in tournaments during the offseason, but as they get more time together on the field, I'm expecting this team to come together and find success through a playstyle that lets Panda and Tho do most of their damage in the midfield, with Oaly being the main one to take shots and make saves, a playstyle that he's already accustomed to. Against BS Plus in the spring, Oaly is holding down the back line with Godsmiller looking to set up a scoring chance, but after the ball bounces off the corner, It goes straight to Oaly, and he gets a powerful clear down the middle of the field, getting it over Freaky, who was in position to take a shot. Since his two teammates were rotating back to support on defense, it's on Oaly to follow up his own hit, and he only has one defender to worry about, with Acronik sitting in front of the goal. Oaly jumps up to threaten a shot from the air, and this threat forces Acronik to stay close to the goal line, because this position gives him the best chance at stopping a potential shot. But instead of taking that shot, Oaly fakes it and heads back down to the ground for his next touch. Acronik moving back towards the goal to save a potential shot has opened up extra space in front of the goal for Oaly to take advantage of, and this was the perfect way to do it. With his final touch, Oaly flips into the ball, shooting it to the right and sending the ball above and behind Acronik. Catalysm had a consistent presence in RLCS X, only missing out on 2 regionals throughout the season. But things really took off for him when he joined Ivan and Rizix on German Amigos in the spring split, where they qualified for the spring major by finishing second in the spring grid behind BDS. Catalysm especially began to round into form on that team, as he led the team in both goals and saves. But while they were impressive during the spring, they've looked even better in the offseason. Since the end of the spring major, German Amigos have played in 4 different B-tier events, and they have won every single time. Most of the time doing so in dominating fashion, only dropping 2 or 3 games. And in one of the events, they didn't lose a single game. And while the Amigos have had all this success in the offseason, Catalysm has been leading the charge for them offensively with his goal scoring, and his incredible ability to control the pace of play whenever he gets the ball. He has great awareness of when he needs to slow the play down or speed the play up, and he also has the ability to do whichever is needed. We see his great ability to control the pace of play on display here, where he has a full tank of boost on the back wall, and the ball floating towards him. He has the option to jump off the wall and get the play started in the air, but instead, he decides to drive down the wall and meet the ball on the ground, looking to slow the play down. Alpha sees him do this and takes the chance to try to force a challenge out of him, aggressively diving in for a 50. But Catalysm calmly hits the ball off to the left, making Alpha miss entirely. Now he takes it up the wall, and this is where you can see him pick up the pace. Ivan has found a pocket of space downfield in front of the goal, and Catalysm wastes no time in sending a bullet straight to him. Ivan's shot is barely saved by Fairy Peak, but because of the awkward angle that he was forced to make the save at, he couldn't get much power on the clear, meaning that Catalysm is able to swoop in and finish it off for the goal. Joyo is admittedly still a bit of an unknown to many Rocket League fans, which doesn't surprise me at all. He didn't become eligible for RLCS until he turned 15 on Christmas Day and started competing in the spring split for a team named Howard, which is a very interesting name, and if you're wondering where it came from, so am I, because I have no idea what it means. Like, who is Howard? But putting the weird team name aside, Howard didn't see much success in RLCS. They only qualified for 1 spring event, during which they didn't get a win, and while they managed to qualify for the grid, they finished 13th out of 16th. But they did manage to get some quality wins over some teams, including championship qualifiers Guild, Solary, and Team BDS? Really?
Polar, he gets that one right back in. Good demo, that's the goal completely opened up, and oh my word, Howard have just won 3-1 against Team BDS.
Wow, cool. All of this is to say that I know Joyo is unknown and unproven, and to be honest, he's the biggest reach that I have on this list. But every time I saw him on the field, I was really impressed with what he could do mechanically, and this was during his first ever showing against top level competition. Most of the mistakes that he made were due to inexperience, and as he spends more time at the top level, those mistakes will slowly start to go away. Alongside his new 2 teammates, Joreuz and Vatira, 2 more young and unproven players, I'm expecting them to grow together as a team, and for Joyo to take significant steps towards stardom. He may not get there this season, but I think that one day he'll be a household name. Here's a quick look at his mechanical ability. After the ball bounces straight to him following Monkey Moon's challenge, he bangs the ball straight up into the air and immediately takes flight after it. He quick aerials and races to the ball, beating extra. With his second hit, he gets moving a little bit to the right, creating a slightly better shooting angle, and he rotates through the ball on contact, giving it more speed. And finally, he uses a bit more boost to get further above the ball, which allows him to direct the shot further downward. He hits the ball off his back bumper and directs it in for the double tap tight angle shot. And although I'm almost certain that he didn't have this in mind when he was taking the shot, everything that he did here was perfect to counter BDS's preferred defensive style, which I talked about more in depth in my EU All-Pro Teams video. Mark likes to challenge early, but taking the ball up into the air with such a strong hit so early into the play means that Mark can do nothing to contest him. And Extra likes to shadow to give Monkey Moon time to rotate back to goal, but with Joyo coming at him so quickly, there's no way that he'll be able to slow down the play enough just by shadowing. So he also has to go for a quick challenge in hopes to stop the play. And with Joyo going as fast as he is with the ball, Monkey Moon has no time to rotate back to goal and play the goal line defender role that he's so good at. In fact, Mark is the man that's closest to the goal during Joyo's final touch, which is something that he is definitely not known for. Literally everything about the shot was perfect to counter the BDS defense, but in order to pull this off on your own, you need to have great speed and great mechanics, and Joyo has plenty of both. Well, my mediocre highlights are playing on the screen now, which means that the video is basically over. But before you go, leave a comment about who you think is going to have a breakout season. I want to know more about the players that you guys are going to be keeping an eye on, so I can keep an eye on them too. I'll be back with my comprehensive RLCS season preview, which you all are not going to want to miss. But until then, thanks for watching.